Imagine the human body as a city and cancer as an invading army. We can cut out the invaders with surgery or destroy them with chemotherapy and radiation. Sounds good, right? But there are limitations and we can't always win against cancer. Thankfully, there's another way, disrupting the enemy supply line by preventing angiogenesis, which is essentially formation of new blood vessels. Thus, cancer cannot grow, and for that matter, any disease processes that depend on angiogenesis will also be disrupted. The key substance responsible for angiogenesis is vascular endothelial growth factor, or VEGF. We call the technology that counteracts this process anti-VEGF. Welcome to the Prince Mahidol Award Armchair Interview. I'm Pavit Pivijit. It's my pleasure to introduce Professor Napoleon Falera. He's a man behind award-winning research on anti-VEGF. He's a distinguished professor of pathology, adjunct professor of pharmacology and ophthalmology at the University of California, San Diego Moores Cancer Center. Hi, Professor Ferreira. Welcome to PMAC.
Oh, this is really great. Really, thank you very much. It's a really great pleasure to be here. I feel so honored to receive this award from the Prince Mahidol Award. It's really great.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Well, first question, how long have you been working on the field of VEGF?
Well, essentially I started working on this field for almost 40 years. Started when I was a postdoctoral fellow at the UCSF, started my fellowship in 1983. At that time I was not working on VEGF, I was working actually on some very unusual cells in the pituitary called follicular stellate cells. I speculated that these cells can produce some angiogenic factor, some mitogenic factor for endothelial cells. And that's how the story started. This particular molecule had an effect only on endothelial cells. And that's why I came up with this name, vascular endothelial growth factor, the name that kind of stuck, to this molecule.
Okay. Can you summarize your contribution to the field? I mean, mind you, I'm a cardiologist. I still had a hard time reading up on your work. Very technical.
Oh yeah, no, I think what we did, we isolated, this factor, vascular endothelial growth factor. It quickly became clear that this was a very important molecule in angiogenesis. For example, the knockout of VEGF in mice resulted in lethality, in embryonic lethality after inactivation of only one copy of the VEGF gene, which is very, very unusual, actually, almost unprecedented. So this was clearly an important molecule in the development of the vascular system. Further studies show that this molecule play a critical role in tumor growth, in tumorigenesis. And an aspect with that perhaps even a greater impact is a critical mediator of the neovascularization in the eye, in the retina. It is implicated in the diabetic retinopathy and age-related macular degeneration. But then we developed this monoclonal antibody as a tool to probe, the biology of VEGF. There was this hypothesis, that long-standing hypothesis, that tumor growth, is dependent on angiogenesis. And at the time, the result, with this antibody were very surprising, because there was already very strong effect, with this antibody. And the conventional wisdom was that in angiogenesis required many factors, maybe 10 or 20 factors. So maybe the expectation was there would be a very minimal effect, with this antibody. And instead, to our surprise, there was already very robust effect. Clearly, tumors were the first, target of anti-VEGF therapy.
How did you come about using it in the eye for macular degeneration?
Another very important hypothesis was that the neovascularization is critical for retinal angiogenesis. This is actually using the same monoclonal antibody was used in mouse, in the tumor models, almost completely inhibit, retinal angiogenesis. So to that be the story seems to come together from different angles.
Where else and what the other diseases you think will be using this kind of technology to cure?
Well, I think in the angiogenesis there is many hypotheses that angiogenesis is implicated, for example, in endometriosis, in a variety of disease, potentially other disease that could be affected, could be benefit, from anti-VEGF. There is a variety of benign tumors. There are some gynecological diseases like the polycystic ovary syndrome, which is characterized by extensive vascularization in the ovary, and other disease.
What are the major challenges you're working on?
The idea that you could have a regeneration of some organ with the growth factor. VEGF is one of those, but we've been actually working on the idea of the organ-specific angiogenesis. There could be factors which affect angiogenesis only in particular organs.
Like the heart or something?
Well, DART, but for example, we focus. It could be DART, could be is a certainly possibility. But we've been actually our work has been lately in dye. The idea that there are some factors which actually could prevent the dropout of the choriocapillaris, the degeneration of the choriocapillaris, which is that vessels in dye, extraretinal vessels. And when there is a dropout of these vessels, you can have atrophy of the retina and geographic atrophy. So we think that this could be a very promising idea, very promising avenue.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your work with us, and big congratulations on receiving the Prince Mahidol Award.
Thank you so much.
Thank
it's been
you.
really
Thank
an
you.
honor
Hope
to receive
to
it.
see you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay.
From cutting-edge technology, let's move on to something a little bit more scary. Poisoning occurs quite commonly around the world. Last year, cyanide poisoning was making dramatic headlines here in Thailand. Our next award recipient was a trailblazer in the field of medical toxicology. He was one of the first to compile an extensive poison database used by doctors around the world. His work on acetaminophen poisoning continues to be the gold standard of treatment to this very day. He's the Emeritus Professor of Emergency Medicine and Pediatrics at University of Colorado School of Medicine. And a fascinating trivia, he was once portrayed as his namesake in the movie Airplane. We're honored to have Professor Barry Rumack here with us. Hi, Professor Rumack. Welcome to PMAC. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
All right. Well, first question, how did you become interested in the field of medical toxicology?
Well, the chair of pediatrics, where I was first at the University of Colorado, asked me to take over the Poison Center because I had training in chemistry. And at that time, the Poison Center was basically clerk typists answering questions from cards. And we were able to professionalize it and get nurses, pharmacists, and other physicians involved. When I took over the Poison Center in Denver, the data that was available on product ingredients as well as treatments was very poor. It came from a number of sources, but was usually inaccurate. So decided to develop a database, and we had people go out to the grocery stores and elsewhere with recording devices, put in the information, and then wrote treatments for each of them. And as we developed that for ourselves, then other poison centers wanted it, and now it's become Poisondex, which is all over the world.
Can you share with us some memorable cases in your career?
I think one of the most interesting ones was when the Denver Zoo decided to have a snake exhibit. And they had rattlesnakes, which we have lots of in Colorado, but they decided they wanted to have some exotic snakes. And they got cobras and kraits and various other snakes. And one day I got a call from the zoo, which had refused to buy antivenoms before
To
this.
accompany the animals.
Right. We had plenty of rattlesnake antivenom, but none for the exotic animals. And they called me because one of the people who took care of the snakes had been bitten by a golden false cobra, which I had no information about at all as to how to treat. So I called the snake center here, I think it's the Red Cross Snake Farm, and spoke to somebody who was an expert on that. And we were wondering whether we should get the Air Force to bring antivenom to Denver. And he said he thought that we would not need the antivenom. And so we helped the patient breathe, and after a few days kept getting better. And each day I spoke with the expert here in Bangkok who knew lots about the snakes.
That's nice. Well, most of the cases you found, was it intentional poisoning or unintentional poisoning?
When I started, it was unintentional poisoning in children.
Right.
And as we developed more information, the emergency departments in the city and in the state would call us, and it became obvious there was more adult poisonings than children. I mean, children get into a lot of things, but they don't usually get enough. They suck on a ballpoint pen, it looks terrible, but it's not really poisonous. So I ended up taking care mostly of adult patients who were really attempting suicide.
What do you think is the role of technology in the field? How has it improved the way we detect, we communicate, and we treat the patients?
When I started, there were many colorimetric procedures in the chemistry laboratory where something would turn a color. They were mostly inaccurate. Since then, we've developed things like gas chromatography, mass spectroscopy, which you have here. I saw it this morning when I visited. And we can get very detailed into exactly what the patient has taken. So we provide really supportive care, breathing, airway, the standard sorts of things, and control of seizures and whatever happens to be the problem with the patient. And once we find the specific substance that they've taken, and there may be some specific antidotes, like for ethylene glycol or methanol or acetaminophen, various other things that we can do some specific treatment, but mostly we just want them to survive.
Is your job more difficult because there's more new substance, being invented every day?
The biggest problem we have is, I think, the illicit drugs that are being invented. We see a lot of fentanyl, and for example, we had a case of some people who bought what they thought was cocaine, but it was really fentanyl, and they snorted it, and they were all found dead in their house. So the drug dealers, for whatever reason, are selling things that are killing their patients.
Customers, killing their customers.
That's
Yes.
exactly right, which seems like the wrong way to market
Yeah, that's true.
your drug. But we had 109,000 deaths from fentanyl last year. We're now seeing nitazines and xylene and various other substances which are causing huge problems. They've overtaken things like heroin, although we still see some of that.
You have been doing this for more than 50 years. What keeps you motivated?
I think our research is really what has kept me motivated, is we figure out the metabolism of different things, and we figure out how to interfere with some of the metabolism or accelerate it or remove a certain drug. Each time we get the mechanism down, the real chemical pharmacologic mechanisms down, we are able to do much better for our patients. And we just keep publishing research and finding new things. That's probably the best part of what I get to do.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us today, and hope to see you again soon. And again, big congratulations on receiving the award.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that was Professor Barry Rumack and Professor Napoleon Falera, recipients of the 2023 Prince Mahidol Award. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Prince Mahidol channel. We'll see you again soon.